Hi, this is Donna Nova, the Transdimensional Twin Flame and the Afterlife artist. I just took a class about communicating with remote viewing to non-human intelligences and beings. And I met an extraterrestrial during that time who said he was one of my guides. His name that he gave me is Melafon, and we were doing a blind remote viewing, so we didn't know who we were communicating with or what we were seeing until afterwards. But it was revealed that we were viewing the being and connecting with the being at the Varginha Brazil extraterrestrial crash from 1996. This event has recently become discussed in the media more because there's a documentary out about it, so you can find that movie on Amazon Prime. I haven't even watched it yet. I think it's called Moment of Contact. And then there are interviews on YouTube from some of the people that were there because there were credible witnesses, including doctors. So Melafon told me that he is one of my guides. We connected very well during these sessions. We did 2 sessions because I was allowed to choose someone to connect with on a second time as my last session. And I chose him because his energy is amazing, and I love him. He's happy. I say he, but I don't believe there's like a gender necessarily. The energy that he has is very caring and loving and gentle and feminine. But that doesn't mean that he's like a female being. So I still say he, because that's the vibe that I get. But he has beautiful energy. He's enlightened. He controls the room. Whatever room he's in control of it because he's in control of himself. He has now transitioned into the world of spirit as far as this particular being. Obviously, we're all multidimensional, so he's in multiple places. But for this being that he is, he has transitioned into spirit because of that event that happened. But he clearly is still able to communicate with me because I can communicate with anybody in spirit or from the higher dimensions that I want to. So I'm just going to read some of these journal entries because what he told me to do was to connect with him in the morning every day before I do anything else, before my mind has been filled with my problems and the issues of the day and the noise that other humans bring to life. He said, tune down the sound on human life, on other humans, on your human thoughts, on media, on noise of any kind, literal noise, but also emotional noise. So he said to turn all that down and turn the volume up on my inner light and my inner world and the connection to the higher realms. And basically he's leading me towards my own enlightenment, which I've seen. I've mapped my own life 3 times in blind remote viewing sessions that were tasked to me from my teacher. Meaning I didn't know what I was looking at. All I had to go on were 8 random coordinate numbers, just to denote the experience so that you know what it was when you look back on it again. And I've mapped my own enlightenment 3 times. So I already know this is happening, and Melafon says that he's here as a new guide for me to help me through this time in my life when I am learning even more discernment. I am refining my energy field to a high degree of refinement and taking the next steps basically towards my own spiritual enlightenment. That's always been my goal since 2015 when I awakened. In fact, I was kind of always wanting that. I just didn't know anything about it until I spontaneously awakened in the presence of God. She's a goddess. So when that happened, I changed my whole life, or it was changed for me, and I realized I was on this path that I wouldn't change it, but I also felt like I had no control over that. It was my path. It was what I was here for. So here I'm going to read you some from today, from this journal from Melafon. I'm going to make these sessions private at first, just because I don't really know if anybody wants to read these. But just so you can see, this is how much I've gotten so far. It's only been a few days. And he gives me all this information and some drawings as well. Well, these are drawings from before when I started remote viewing. I started writing down all the symbols that I would get. Okay. So this is just from today. I left space here to do some drawings. I thought the ink was going to run through the page, but it looks like it's okay. So I'm going to start writing on both pages in the future probably. But in the green is me, and in the purple is Melafon, and it's mostly Melafon today, which is great. This is my third session. I didn't post yesterday's. It was mostly me just complaining about things and saying, well, help me, so I don't know if I'll ever post that one, but so, good morning, Melafon. I love talking to you. Is now a good time? And he says, yes, of course, been waiting for you. I'm here on call whenever you need. And I said, decisions. Can I get help making them? Because, right now I have a lot of decisions I have to make. Some of them are pretty big and some of them are just things that you have to deal with in life, but all of them together feel overwhelming and I hate that feeling. So he says, yes, write them down and probe them like in an RV session. Circle your favorite ones, connect relationship lines to the outcomes of these possible decisions that you have, and probe these things that you've written down to see if your assumptions regarding these connections are accurate. Just use intuition, not your egoic mind, and it'll help clarify some things. So he's referring to some remote viewing methods that we learned in our classes with Bertie Jawowski, where she teaches us a method called transdimensional mapping. You write and draw all these things that you get, and then you connect them together with these lines, and then you probe with your pen or your non-dominant hand. You feel them, and you get literal information off the page. That's how it works. So that's what he's referring to. So he's giving me exercises that I can use going forward to find out some of these things. He's basically telling me to map them. That's what she calls it when we do this, is mapping. So then I said, so pendulums, are they, what does that say? Are they accurate and legitimate? Are they a legitimate way to get information? He says, yes, but only if the user has cleared their field of egoic beliefs and desires. Be a blank slate first. Which I already know this. And this is something he gave me as a little exercise that he'll explain over here. He said you can draw a pendulum and on an RV map and see if that works to lead you to yes or no. Also, then you could actually go get your pendulum and see if it matches what you got when you mapped. So basically, you can draw the pendulum swinging. You can denote this angle as yes and this as no and this as maybe I don't know or maybe. And then what I would do is probe with my non-dominant hand, which is my right hand because I'm left-handed. So I would draw connections between things, and I would do a large piece of paper, and I would start writing outcomes. Like if I do this, this will happen. If I do this, this will happen. And see if that's accurate, because you might draw a line connecting that yes or no to that outcome that you think is going to happen, and maybe it's not. This is a way to start using your intuition. I'm not really teaching you how to do this. You would have to go learn from Bertie herself, but I'm just trying to explain to you what he's referring to here with me. So basically then he's saying I can do this and get some information and then go get a pendulum and ask it the questions and see if it comes out the same. So then I say, do you want to talk about anything in particular today with me? He says, yes, enlightenment. You are going down that road. You know that. And I said yes, because I do. I've been told that from many guides, many mediums, and I already know it. I don't need to be told, but it keeps coming out. So he says, you can check in with me anytime you need to respond to anything if you wonder what the most enlightened action would be. Normally, you already know, but during stressful times, it's harder. I am here to help you make it easier. Always take the human personality out of the equation, which we know that, but it's hard to do it at the time. So it says any hurt feelings are your ego. Dump them and go back and do some shadow work on them later. You can do the shadow work at the time if you want, do it on the fly, but you need to do the work. Emotions are not reality. Emotions are your reality. They're not the reality. Emotions are your barometer, basically. I'm not reading from him here. I'm just telling you. Emotions are your barometer. They are meant to lead you to inner states of yourself. If you get angry, go figure out why you got angry, because not everybody's going to get angry at this situation. Not everybody gets their feelings hurt all the time. Not everybody claims to be triggered all the time, which I find that the use of that word has been grossly overused. Being triggered is a serious issue that people with PTSD have, and not everybody is constantly triggered. A lot of times when people say, oh, I'm triggered, it just means I'm uncomfortable and I don't like that. And so then they blame the person they think triggered them when it's not even a trigger. It's just an emotion that they don't want to deal with. So they're angry about it. Guess what? Your job is to go deal with your emotions. So stop telling everybody you're triggered and go do your shadow work to figure out why you feel that way. And why do you have to exaggerate your feelings? Because that's a pretty strong word to use when all it really means is that I don't like what you just said because it makes me feel uncomfortable about myself in some way. And, who wants that? So instead of denying the fact that you need to go look at something within yourself, go do it. Your emotions are there for you. Nobody else has to know what your emotions are. Putting them on someone else and saying, you made me feel guilty. You made me feel this way or that way. No, they did not. Nobody makes you feel anything. You make yourself feel everything. It comes from you, not them. Because someone else could have the same experience as you and have a completely different response. They may have no emotional response because none of it bothers them because they've done their shadow work and they've done their inner development work. People who've done their work have very mature responses to situations. They don't constantly cry and run and cry the victim. People who are still in victimhood haven't done this work yet. So that's what he is referring to here with me. And he says, whenever I have emotional reactions to things, to go and do my shadow work to figure out what my emotion is trying to tell me. Because if you can figure out what your emotion is trying to tell you, then you can get over it. Because once you know the message, the emotion disappears. It's like, hey, we got something to deal with here. You get hurt every time this happens. Maybe we could clear that up now and you don't have to get hurt every time that happens. And you're like, no, I don't want to. I just want to get mad. I just want to blame someone else for hurting me. And it's like, okay, but we're going to come back next time because you didn't deal with us this time. So you're going to keep getting hurt. That's what you're doing to yourself because you don't pay attention to your emotions. They're there as signposts for you to address. They're like, hey, please look at me. I need your attention. Please look at me. And you don't. Some people do. People who know how to do shadow work and introspection work, they do it. And it helps them and they grow and they become a more mature and emotionally intelligent person. But people who just ignore their emotions because they're uncomfortable, well, they're going to keep on getting those same emotions because you never did resolve them. So they're going to keep crying for your attention until you resolve them. So that's what Melafon is referring to here. Sorry, I had to go off on a tangent, but I do have to explain these concepts as they are they're basic concepts for beginners in spirituality. These are beginner concepts, but not everybody knows about these things because spirituality is a huge, never-ending mass of information. You can't learn it all. And some people miss the part at the beginning where they need to be doing this inner work. They're focused on something outer, such as, like, what can I do with my spirituality? Can I call myself awakened or enlightened, which, basically, no, you can't call yourself enlightened. That almost no one is enlightened. That is reserved for truly enlightened beings, and I don't know any of those. Awakened, yes, possibly, but instead of trying to come up with a label and list all your psychic gifts and then call yourself a medium or a healer or whatever, don't call yourself anything. Just keep doing your inner work. You will be who you are. You don't need a label. So this is basic spiritual 101. And if you're not doing this work, you're really not on a spiritual path yet. You're researching a path, but you're not on it. Okay. So he says that any of these feelings that you have when something happens to you, they're all from your egoic mind. They are useful, like I just explained, to tell you where you are in yourself, where you are on your journey, and what you've learned. But they are not reality. They're just your emotions. If somebody held a sign up on the side of the road, you wouldn't say, well, that's reality. You would say, this is this person's reality. That's their opinion. That's their world, not necessarily yours. So he's telling me to dump my emotions so you can draw them. That's something else we learned in class. You can write down the situation and all of your emotions that respond to that are in there, and put them on paper and start dissecting them and figure out why do you have these emotions in your past. What happened? What happened to give you these emotions in the first place? A lot of them come from childhood. So he says, dump the emotions. Go back and do shadow work on them later. But don't use them as a jumping off point for your response to the situation. Don't respond from anger, fear, overwhelm, or confusion, okay? That's very important. Don't respond from these emotional states when you have a situation. You will regret that, and you're not making calm, reasonable decisions because you're coming from a charged emotion. Charged emotions mean that you have an overactive amygdala. It's the fight or flight or freeze response. So just don't react right then. Go calm down and deal with your emotions and figure out what they're trying to tell you. And then when you get rid of the charged emotion, you can deal effectively and clearly with the situation. So he says, charged emotions are the sole responsibility of the brain, not the higher mind. Okay, you have a brain and a higher mind. They're not the same. The ego is in the brain. It's the lower human aspect of the mind. It helps us with three-dimensional things, but it's not the higher mind. So that's not where you want to be coming from if you want to be awakened. He says, your higher self doesn't have these clouded judgments and wounds. Emotions are only for the personality experiencing. They're a navigation tool most people don't even use in the way it was intended. To come from a higher, clearer place, no emotions are involved. This is neutral, you see. So always take them out of the equation before saying or doing anything in response to whatever happened to you. Basically, he's saying to calm down, take a deep breath, step back, calm down. If you want to do some shadow work on your emotions, go for it. If you can't do it right then, no problem. But at least don't respond before you've let these charged emotions dissipate, So emotions get in the way and they cloud higher wisdom. Remember, hold on, I have to plug in my phone. It's about to cut off. I didn't realize that. Okay. Let's see. Remember, many charged emotions on the lower end of the vibrational scale will lower your vibration. I've shared this before, but there's a scale of emotions and where they oscillate and what vibration they have. It's like you would think. The lower vibrational emotions are the ones that are involved with grief, fear, anger, jealousy, envy, and all those things that don't feel so good. The emotions that are on the higher end of the scale are the ones that feel great, like gratitude, joy, love, appreciation, all those things that are more transcendent. Okay. So he's basically reminding me that a lot of emotions that you might come up with when something stressful happens are already on the lower end of the scale, which means if you go into those emotions, you have just lowered your own vibration, you know? So if you think of it like that, and you know that your goal, like mine, is to keep a high vibration, or at least, be neutral and don't get thrown off course with these wild responses to things. If you're not centered and balanced, you'll have these emotional responses to things that you can't trust yourself, and nobody else can trust you either, because nobody knows where you're going to go. So if you want to be calm and balanced and on the way to your higher self and embodying your higher self, you can't jump into these lower vibrational emotions all the time and respond from there. Yeah, you got to feel them and acknowledge them, but then you got to do shadow work to figure out why they're there. Because your anger or your depression or your sadness probably comes from something that happened a long time ago, and it's just coming up again because you didn't deal with it the first time. So deal with it this time. Okay, so he's like, don't go into those lower vibrational emotions, or else you will lower your own vibration, which means it's harder to go forward after that, to make a good decision. You just lowered your own vibration. You chose to do that by going into a lower emotion. You're like, let me go in there. And it's like, why would you go in there? You're just going to lower your vibration, which means you're even farther away from your higher self, and you can't make a good decision from there. So he says, resolve why these emotions are there and what they're trying to tell you before or after you respond. Sometimes you can't deal with it right that minute, but go back and deal with it regardless, and don't respond right away. And don't respond until you've done this. So he says, you've got to be comfortable sitting with situations and not having a resolution immediately. It takes less time to let the dust settle and respond calmly and clearly than it does to fly off the handle and being led by the nose by these emotions, and then taking an undesirable path or making an unwise decision. Now, all decisions are learning opportunities. There's really no mistake. But let's be honest, there's some better decisions than others. There's ones that take you right where you want to go and lead you forward really quickly. And there's ones that take you a roundabout route that you may never get out of. So there are better decisions that you can make, always. This was a different little thing that he was showing me about connecting to someone in spirit, basically drawing the triangle between us and connecting in spirit. So that's not really relevant to what we're talking about right here. So he continues, take the extra time you need to calm down and be present always. Being present is important. This is how you get out of the emotions. Being present doesn't really have a bunch of emotions in it. Sometimes I feel bliss, absolute bliss and transcendent during these moments of being present. That happens. But I never feel bad when I'm present. The present moment is just the present moment. So he says to always just be in the present moment and just, put these emotions down until they have lost their charge. So they're not leading you or blinding you to making a good choice. So if you're in the middle of a stressful situation, he says, it's okay to disengage and do some inner work on the emotions first. Then you feel like you're still working on the issue instead of just waiting for yourself to feel better. So yeah, I like feeling like I'm working on stuff. I like learning these tests. I like passing my tests. I like school, basically. I like Earth School when I'm learning. When I hated Earth School was when I didn't feel like the lessons made any sense and I wasn't learning them. I was spiritually asleep and I didn't understand the way society worked because humans just seem so ridiculous. Our systems don't work, and adults didn't make any sense to me, or, other humans didn't make any sense to me either. So now that I understand people better and I understand myself, Understanding yourself means you can understand other people better as well. So once I put myself in that perspective and I could see everybody's different angles, I could see all sides of any situation and I could learn my lessons. Then I started to enjoy it because knowing that I'm learning makes me feel like I'm useful. It makes me feel like the situation is useful. If I can find a lesson in a situation, that's when I feel that it's useful. If I don't feel like the situation is useful to me, that's when I get angry, which is what he's going to talk about next. So I said, okay, thank you. That does make sense. Then he said, you can know what does he say? Oh, you can draw your emotions too, just so you see them and their origins. So basically, there was an example of me drawing my emotions and where they come from. And, you can get a big piece of paper out and do this, kind of like a remote viewing map, I guess. Okay, then I said, okay, my daily life, what are the things that I do or think that are most detrimental to me reaching a higher level of awakening? He says, you already know a lot of them. Negative thinking. Okay, here I started writing on both sides of the page because I realized it was okay and it didn't bleed through too much. He said, negative thinking about situations, others, self, or myself does not help. Find the path through by taking the action offered. Taking the lesson offered with gratitude. Be grateful for your lessons. That really raises your vibration. Find something positive that you can learn in any situation as fast as you can, and then appreciate that with gratitude, and you will raise your vibration and come to a clearer understanding, and then you can make a better decision. So this gratitude moves you forward much faster. Accelerated learning means you learn. Most people don't learn the lesson very fast, if at all. He said that most learn during their post-life review. When you transition across the veil, you learn all the things you didn't learn in life because they are shown to you. They're shown to you the responses that you could have had and the background of all these situations and things that you could have learned that you didn't. So you're going to learn them one way or the other. But if you want to be enlightened in this life while you're physically here, you got to learn them when they happen. Learn as you go. Then you're going to make better, and better decisions. So he says, that's how you ascend, is you learn and incorporate the lessons offered as they are offered, as much as possible. Just do your best, Don't put pressure on yourself. It's fun to learn these lessons. When you know that you can learn something relevant, a lot of times the situation doesn't repeat anymore. If it's something stressful, it won't repeat once you learn the lesson, Once you learn about narcissists and how to stand up to them and not let them into your energy field, they don't come back. Like, that's what I've noticed. So that's a good one. So once the lesson is offered, if you learn it, do it as much as possible. And that's how you pass grades in Earth school. Earth is a school. So accept the challenges as offered for training purposes. And he's saying that I actively love school and learning. I just hated it the way that my society taught, which I feel like they taught lies, nonsense, propaganda, and false narratives, either from a deceptive point of view or just ignorance. That's how I felt like school was in America. Our school system just doesn't work, and they didn't teach us things that were truthful or necessary for our adult lives. So when learning is practical, meaning I can use this information daily to improve my life, that is relatable to my life and it's relevant. That's when I love school, when I can use these lessons and improve my life. The reason I got frustrated with school, like regular school, was that none of this stuff made sense. I'm like, so what if we learn this or that? We're never going to use that information. Tell me something that's useful. And they hardly ever did. So this is when you can take yourself to school. If you're, like I'm doing with Melafon right here, he's teaching me school every day. He said when I met him and he said he was my guide, he's like, connect with me every morning and start writing this stuff down. And that's school, and I am. So that's the kind of school I can get behind. A school taught by an enlightened being that has surpassed all this junk and egoic stuff that humans do. I don't need to learn from an egoic human. And there are so many egoic humans, it's hard to find one that can teach you that isn't. So that's why I go to the higher realms to learn these things. So he says, make sure you see the challenges have relevant lessons and messages for you, or else you're going to get angry and bitter, because I do. So he said that dissipates when you find the relevant lesson or information and then apply it to your life, which is true. You may like painting a portal of me, meaning Melafon, or anyone else you wish to communicate with. When you see images change in your paintings while you're in trance, because I do that. I call them portal paintings because I do see things in them when I'm meditating with them. Know that is real and you are creating a portal. Trust that. Trust your abilities. You've called them portals all these years. Now treat them as such. Use them the way they were intended, like an oracle. Talk and watch. Take notes. You can paint one of me today if you want to, or Chris and Ember, or the orbs. Anybody in spirit that I want to talk to. Chris is my twin flame in spirit. So he's saying anybody that I want to talk to, I could paint a painting of them. Now here's a couple of paintings just so you can see. This one is a spirit guide that I painted a couple of days ago, and he's clearly powerful. My paintings do have power and energy embedded in them from the higher realms and higher dimensions because I have the ability to do that. I am an energy channel. I am constantly channeling energy. I vibrate like a tuning fork or like someone has plugged me into an electrical outlet 24/7. It's either super, super strong or just strong, but it never. And so these paintings are portals. I see all kinds of things when I look at them. I'll see scenes like movies in these paintings. And I have instinctively called them portals all these years. And I've told people when you buy any kind of art from me, it's going to be charged with energy of higher dimensions. I also sell crystals and jewelry, and it's the same way there. And anything that I channel, anything that's written that I've channeled for you or verbal, it has the energy of the higher realms too, because I'm a channel. So using the gift of psychometry, that's the gift where you put energy into an object or can read energy from an object. That's what that is. So these are called meta art. Let me show you one more time. This is meta art, which means it includes the energy of the higher realms. Some people can feel the energy coming through the screen when I show them these. Some people can feel the energy of crystals coming through the screen when I've shown them. If you have the ability of psychometry, if you have the psychic ability of clairsentience, which is psychic sensing, you can feel it in your body. People call it intuition, but it's clairsentience. That is what that ability is, when you can feel energy from something just by looking at it. Not quite sure if this one's finished yet. It's obviously an owl. And this is like sort of a bird guide, like a phoenix or a thunderbird. And I'm not sure if this one is quite finished yet, but I was staring at it in meditation the other day, and it opened up and I saw a scene. I saw things. And that's happened to me plenty of times. Like sometimes it's like a movie. I'll just watch it change and all these different people and scenes will show up in the painting. Especially if it's an abstract painting. Here's a couple more. I really, really like this one right here. There's a cherry blossom tree of life and a blue butterfly, because they both, personally for me, symbolize spiritual awakening, because I had a cherry blossom experience when I had my awakening. And the blue butterfly was the first sign that my Chris in spirit ever gave me to look for verbally when I asked him. Actually, no, it was the purple heart, but blue butterfly was the first sign that he ever showed me. So I kept seeing blue butterflies everywhere, and apparently that's a sign that spirit uses quite often. There's some butterflies over there. I started realizing I had a few butterflies around. So this room has turned into the cherry blossom gold butterfly room. Because look, there's even butterflies on the handles of my nightstands. And there's a gold butterfly sphere stand that Chris got me from the thrift store when I asked him to show me the coolest thing in the thrift store. And this thing was from India. I'm at the wrong angle, so you can't really see how cool it is. But it's brass, and it's super cool, and it was like $1. All right, I think that was enough for today. I really didn't mean for this to take that long, but these are lessons from an enlightened extraterrestrial from beyond the veil. And I believe they are accurate because they make sense. And when I was remote viewing him, he showed me things that I shouldn't know, like the shape of his ship. I drew it exactly. And the way that I perceived him as an enlightened being, and he was magical and beautiful as a being, that was repeated from people who met this being. They could tell that by looking in his eyes. His energy was that powerful. So, if you watched this, you are clearly into some weird stuff like me. Thanks for watching. I'm sharing it just because I feel that it's got information for all of us in here. This is my personal spirit guidance from him. But who doesn't want to talk to an enlightened being? I mean, I'll take that any day. So I'll share some of these eventually if I think that they are maybe relevant for other people. Okay, thank you for entertaining my unusual journey. I do appreciate that. Bye.